Because there's a widespread assumption the British were the colonizers, Indians were the ones colonized. They were just mere subjects. But as you've shown in your books, especially these princely states, these Maharanis, these Maharajas, the Sultans, they were not just passive agents. They were not false allies. There were partnerships. There was pushback. They were shrewd, active players. So how do we look back on colonial history now if we start giving more weight to the power and authority that these regions had?
The British were the colonizers and we were the ones who were colonized. My problem is when we flatten that into, oh my God, they were these like all-powerful oppressors and we were these like passive, suffering people. The frank truth is there was constant tension and there was constant pushback. The British knew it. Which is why, for example, the British invested so much in building monumental buildings and having these great demonstrations of their power through great ceremonies and darbars, the kind of robes they'd wear, the decorations and titles they would hand out. All of that was a constant effort to build legitimacy for yourself, for themselves. The very act of building legitimacy comes from knowing that you are in some ways not legitimate. So there is always an insecurity in the white man's mind in India that ultimately it's 100,000 or maximum 200,000 people governing millions of people and we are ultimately aliens here. So they were aware of that. Similarly, the Indians on this side, even because of the power being lopsided, because ultimately hard power was in the colonizer's hand, they did have to sort of make their peace with that system for a long duration. But even within that, there were ways of subverting it. For example, a lot of the bureaucracy was manned by Indians and the British were often astonished by this, right? Like a lot of them wanted to civilize Indians, a lot of them wanted to Christianize India, etc. But they would find that Indians who were getting into the bureaucracy, getting paid by the colonial state, would use that money to do even greater pujas, to sponsor even bigger temples, to sponsor local dancing girls, etc. And actually funnel that colonially created wealth into local forms of art and culture. In other places, yes, the British state was able to wipe out patronage for a lot of things, but often people within the British ecosystem who were Indians were able to actually use that to build on Indian traditions and Indian identity, etc. People picked up the English language and the British thought, okay, now they're going to read Western texts, give up their Indian identity and essentially become brown men in the white man's clothes. But in reality, they picked up the English language and ended up turning that against the British themselves. Yes, they read about democracy and then they started questioning the British saying, hold on, democracy is what you believe in. These are these great ideals your books are talking about. Why don't we have democracy here? Why don't we have rights here? If you're saying that all human beings are created equal and your God says that all human beings are created equal in the kingdom of God, etc., why is it that the brown man is discriminated against vis-a-vis the white man? So there is a way in which even the oppressed person or the subject class can weaponize aspects of the dominant ruler's ideology and ideas and weaponize that against the ruler himself. And that's essentially what happens in the colonial period. And it's happening in multiple levels. Pre-colonial period, say from a caste perspective, while it is true that upper caste dominated, elite groups dominated, etc., there was always pushback from underneath. All of Bhakti literature is pushback against caste at one level. There are women pushing back against patriarchy if you look at some of the poetry that's coming out in this period. So it's interesting that that people always have agency and people always attempt to assert agency. It comes at a great price. It can often cause them great losses. But at the same time, human beings instinctively, I think, have that capacity for agency, even when power dynamics are lopsided. So my whole point is that the colonial era isn't a simplistic affair. There's a lot going on over there. Sometimes you mentioned the Rajas, they are using ritual. Hard power, yes, they're weaker than the British, so they weaponize ritual and they weaponize other things to try and put the British in place. I often give this example of how in Travancore, every time white people wanted to visit members of the royal family, they would have to visit before 8 o'clock in the morning because that way you could shake hands with the white people and then the Rani or the Raja would go and take a ritual bath to purify themselves. The British are dominant, but by going and washing and taking a bath after meeting the British, you're essentially also making a statement that, you may be dominant politically, but from a caste perspective, we are higher than the white man. The white man is just a mlecha. He's beyond the pale completely. They would organize these big banquets for these British officials and governors visiting, but the Hindus attending would never eat there. They would sit there with a lemon in their hand. And the lemon, why do people hang lemons outside their doors with that black figure, etc.? Why do people hang lemons on their new cars, etc.? Because it's believed to absorb the evil eye and absorb impurity. So yes, politically, we have no option but to hold a banquet for this visiting viceroy or visiting British governor. But I will also sit there with a lemon because I know it's an impure context and let the governor eat. I will not eat. I'll just sit there with my lemon. These were always used to make political statements as well. So even in that colonial dynamic, I don't think Indians lost agency. Even when the British were dominant, they were able to weaponize a lot of British created ideas and knowledge systems and even language for their own causes and uses, and ultimately force the British into a corner and bring about the exit of the British.